Hey, what's up, guys? We're back. Thank you all for participating. If you were at the live stream, the main live stream, and it's good to have everybody back. And we'll try to keep this 20-30 minutes or so, and be efficient and get to questions that are coming through and talk about Dumble stuff, whatever you guys want to talk about. So yeah, Skylar, you're digging the new intro music. I'm so glad. It's definitely we're trying to get it better. We're trying to improve everything about the stream, and so hopefully we'll continue to improve it. Get nice music. Get better graphics. I guess I have to figure out this comb filtering thing. I wonder if the camera is somehow still sending stuff into Ecamm Live. I'm not sure. Um, Kevin says, of all the Dumble amps you've played, is there one that stood out as being your favorite? Thanks again for streaming with us. Of course. And yes, Henry Kaiser had a blue 70s Dumble that was really, really good. And he sold it to Nobu Hayashi at at Velvet Sound in Japan. I don't know why he sold him that one because that was the better of his Dumbles. But yeah, that sounded incredible. And there's a picture of me somewhere around with that amplifier. I'll see if I can pull it up. Like, it's like the ultimate Dumble flex, where I have a steel string singer and an overdrive special behind me. Um, Let me see if I can find it. Well, it's not coming up in my photos, but it's somewhere around. If you're if you look around, I think it's been in some of the things. But yeah, basically it's like on each shoulder I have like those two amps, and that blue one is in there, and it's this blue suede from the '70s. It's really great. That's the best one I've played. And hello from Spain. Awesome. One question about the Ultraphonics and steel string. What's the frequency range of the filter knobs? It's focused between, on the low end, about 1.2, and on the high end, about 1.8K. So kind of a mid range filter control. Um, it's pure 80s LA rig doctor wet dry energy. Absolutely is. I mean, if that's pulled off of a Dan Huff YouTube video where he's doing like an instructional, and that was like what he's playing in one of the sections, and so we just got the musical. It was never released. It's just for that. And I don't know Dan well, but he didn't have any objection to us using it, so that's why we've been able to have it in there. But I think even the lesson video that's on YouTube, where somebody like ripped the whole VHS and put it up on YouTube, like that's not from Dan. That's just like somebody that just put it up there, and it's been up there for 12 years or something like that, and nobody's complained. All right. Hey Tor, I finished my Rig Doctor inspired board. Thanks for your advice. Absolutely. What's the story behind the Dumble Overdrive special that was featured in your LA showroom? So it was in my LA showroom. Now it's here, actually. So the deal with it is that, so we've had a couple of different versions of it over time. None of them belong to me. Um, and the latest one was a client from France that I've built a lot of rigs for and stuff like that. It's a big Robin Ford fan. And he had bought one from another customer of ours. And he basically just said, like, I'm going to come and grab it from you in the spring. And it's, we're going to take a family vacation from France. So I'm going to have this guy drop it off to you, verify that it's okay, and then I'm going to wire him the money for the amp. And so he brought it to our showroom, and the intent was it was going to sit at our showroom from around NAMM time until March, so about 2 months. And then he was going to come in March to pick it up from with his family, and he was going to fly back to France. But then COVID hit, and it's just been here. And he's a doctor in France, and so he's like super high need there, can't fly out, and so it's just been here. It's just been here, and that's the story. Now, the story in terms of the circuit is that it used to be a combo. So it used to be a 112 combo. It was converted into a head at some point in the 90s or the late 90s. I think the amp is a 91 or 93. I can't remember. There's information about it like underneath or in the back of the cabinet. And it was originally a combo. It was converted to a head, and it had unauthorized, Dumble's words, work done on it because somebody worked on it that wasn't Dumble. But it was like really inconsequential stuff like caps, and stuff that there wasn't, like even if you put in a cap that somebody didn't approve of, this wouldn't like make an amazing amp sound like garbage all of a sudden. And they weren't bad. What's in there is high quality. Anyway, there was some non-approved stuff, so they devalued it some, so it didn't go for as high dollar. But it was definitely a work. Like people use this amp. The guy that he bought it from used this amp for sure, and it sounds good. So the cabinet's not original. And I think Kerry Wright made the replacement cabinet for it, so that wasn't like Kerry Wright made stuff for Dumble often, but some of the cabinets were made by Dumble, and I can tell you that Dumble's cabinets, like maybe the dimensions were something cool, but they were not like super like symmetrical. Like some of Henry Kaiser's, like the dovetail joints are kind of like messed up. They're not perfect. Kerry Wright is a better cabinet maker than Dumble is. And so I think it's better probably that it has that cabinet, especially since it's not a speaker cabinet. But that's the story. Regarding Patreon for Supreme members, when will be the last day for Zoom consultations? Well, really, you can cash in the Zoom consultation anytime between now and May 1st, because everybody who comes over is going to get a free month at whatever the tier was that you were. So you can cash it in. You get a month. Where even if you decide to cancel, you could literally just go through April and get schedule your consult anywhere between then. So you have kind of a month to move everything over, and then you could cancel it on May 1 if you wanted. So just you can arrange that, Thomas, with Mejia, and he can help schedule it, and we can go from there and get everything coordinated. Zochiwa says, talking about Dumble pedals, I have the SSS, Tone Secret, and Dynamic Distortion. Do you need the Ultraphonics? Well, I mean, I think last week's video, again, the one that we did with the 5 songs that used a Dumble, I think that it's a pretty good indicator of what you can get from the Ultraphonics. I think one of the ones that was kind of like a cool version was the kind of the Robin Ford take on it, which actually turned out wasn't a Dumble, but it sounds really good. I'll play that one for you, Zochiwa, and you can kind of get a sense of it. I think it sounds really good. Check this out. So I mean, I think that's a pretty good tone wise, I mean, like it's definitely in that vein. Even though Robin Ford used a Mesa Boogie Mark One, as I found out from Robin after talking to him a little later, after talking to Andy Brower, which man, like Andy is if you know that guy is, he was like the guy in the '90s that everybody in '80s that everybody rented their stuff from because he had the biggest cartage and rental company in LA. And so he owned like every type of amp, and all the studios were constantly renting gear from him. And he, he was neighbors with Robert Bradshaw, and so there was a lot of referral and stuff like that. And so he would tell me stories about stuff, but he also has a very abstract memory for whatever reason, whatever substances perhaps have invaded his brain cells, and so when I talked to Robin's like, I hadn't even met that guy in '79, and so Robin was pretty sure that it couldn't have possibly been a Dumble, but nevertheless, the sound is kind of that. I think a lot of what we associate with the Dumble sound too is kind of the approach and phrasing of guys like Robin Ford and Larry Carlton. They have a particular way that they approach the guitar, and so when you play like that, even when you use a tube screamer, people can be like, oh yeah, it sounds just like a Dumble. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I don't know, Zochiwa. The question is, do you need ultraphonics? I guess it depends if that's like kind of the vibe that you like, or if that's some people don't like that kind of smooth mid range thing. It can be the antithesis to what some people kind of hear as the tone in their heads. So I think that's the question to ask. And Kevin says, thanks again for the speaker recommendations for my Bandmaster last week. I'm going with the G1265s. When wiring the speakers for series, would you recommend? I recommend soldering the connections no matter what, if you can. They're just you can also just use like a thicker speaker cable wire. A lot of the crimped ones are not. They're very thin because they need to be able to fit the crimps and all that stuff. And usually you don't see these really big honking crimps for like a 14 or 16 gauge wire for a speaker cable. So you can, I'd say, solder them. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. And make sure that you check out you have the right wiring diagram. There's plenty of good ones out there online. So just double check that you're wiring it for the right impedance. And you can check that impedance very easily if you just take, a multimeter and you clip it to, let's say, like an unterminated plug into the speaker jack on the back, and just double check that you're getting. It's not going to be exactly, because none of the speakers are usually exactly the impedance that they say. They're usually slightly off. So like a 4-ohm speaker might actually come out to be like 4.4 or 3.8 or something like that. But you're kind of roughly in that zone. That'll be good. But yeah, Tim's playing is incredible. Great player. Tyler asks, what's your personal favorite pedal in the Vertex line? Man, that's hard. Right now, I would say that it's the Steel String Supreme, but there's some recency bias. But I also really like the Ultraphonics a lot, and I'm working on right now. I mean, I guess you guys probably the cat's out of the bag, but this is the Ultraphonics. This might help answer Zochiwa's question. Here's Ultraphonics MK2 that I'm working on right now, and it's pretty much done. And basically, what it does is it just shrinks down Ultraphonics into the kind of the MK2 size. And I added one extra control, which adjusts the input volume. So ordinarily with the Ultraphonics, some people would report that with single coils, that it was a little bit more difficult to get the overdrive to kind of trigger an envelope in the way that they liked. And a lot of that just has to do with the output difference between humbuckers and single coils. So this allows you to have that compensation available so that you can add more gain to the input to kind of simulate what a hotter pickup would do, or having a little bit more of a boosted input. So basically it puts a boost on the input section of the Ultraphonics. Otherwise it's the same. And so it just allows you to get a little bit fatter, a little bit more saturated drive with lower output pickups, so that you can kind of be able to match. And then if you want it to be a stock Ultraphonics, you just take that boost knob and you just turn it all the way off, and there's the standard Ultraphonics, exactly the way that we designed it. And so I just put a transparent boost, just like something you'd find like in our Vertex boost. Obviously there's no expression control or anything like that in here, but it's just a linear boost. It's just hitting the front end to add in that gain and to give it some more saturation, but it'll also be in the smaller size enclosure. So those two right now, I'm in heaven with that, and just really love it for what I go for. But that's me. Zochiwa says, I have an HSS project guitar. I'm going to put the Area 67 in the neck. the Area 58 in the middle, but don't know which humbucker would fit with these two. I really like. I have my Tom Anderson, which is in the other room because the the Floyd Rose like arm, like I had tightened it down, but like the whole like assembly in the back like kind of started to come apart. So I was like, doing not even like a dive bomb, just kind of like a gentle tremolo, and it's like all over the place and kind of hard to maintain. So I have to take it to Benny Rodriguez to have him work on it. And Benny was worked for Tom Anderson for like 20 years and was like he did every job at that shop. But he's great with Tom Anderson, so I always take kind of the more modern guitars to him for sure. And he lives close by in Alameda, which is just the next city, it's the first city that's going to flood if there's ever a tsunami in the Bay Area, because it's like an island that's just kind of like sitting out there. But anyway, I'm going to take it to him to have him work on it. But that has a 67 in the neck, a 58 in the middle, and then it has a Van Halen 78 Seymour Duncan in the bridge, and those sound really good. That's a really excellent humbucking pickup, and it sounds like it would be a real fire breather, but it's not. It's like not that crazy. Like it's nowhere near a super distortion or anything like that. It's definitely like a PAF plus 5 or 10%. It's really, really nice. Sounds great, and it splits great too. If you get the one that has enough of the conductors to split the coil, sounds really good. So I think that's a winner with those pickups for sure. Do you have any advice on how to troubleshoot a speaker that makes no sound? I have a speaker in my 65 AC 30 is dead. Well, you could always take your multimeter and see if it's like reading anything on it. Another way too is you could always take a battery, like a 9-volt battery, and you could stick the plus and minus on there, and you should see that the speaker coil moves. Is an easy way to do it. But sometimes, those older speakers just need to be like reconed and just fall apart and disintegrate. Like, it's rare that you would find a speaker from 65 that doesn't have some sort of damage to it. They just invariably need to be reconed, and that's not as catastrophic of a process as you think. And there's some guys that are really great at it. I think that the guy from Scumbag used to offer like reconing like vintage speakers. I don't know if he still does, but he was a guy that I know a lot of guys in LA really liked. I have never had him do anything for me, but I know that he's out there, so that might be somebody worth looking into. Is it possible to buy your boost on your website? No, it's not possible currently. Sweetwater had made such a huge order, or promised a huge order. Not that they didn't do what they said they did, but they had kind of created an agreement with me where we wouldn't sell it for the first 30 days and that they would have exclusive on it. In Europe, however, you can pre-order it right now from Haar Guitar and Parts. It's HAAR, and they're based in Amsterdam, and they will ship anywhere in Europe, and those are the guys you want to get it from, and you can reserve it now, and they're supposed to have it on March 26th. Skylar, any recommendations for repair setup on a 60s to 70s guitars? Have a 72 Les Paul and a 65 Starfire that needs some TLC. Yeah, so I'm not going to stop playing them. Yeah, so I don't know where you're based, Skylar. And I don't have any like really good like repair guys that I could probably recommend, unless they're in LA or the Bay Area or Nashville. I really only know guys there. I don't really know people that are all around. So, and it says in the Valley. Okay. Yeah. So a couple of good guys. One of them is Eric Chaz. He's in Van Nuys. He's kind of by Whiteman Airport. So I would say he's good. Another guy on the west side who's also really good is Greg Bach, and it's spelled Bach, but he pronounced it Bach, like Johann Sebastian Bach. Greg is also excellent. He does a lot of the session guys stuff because he does a lot of house calls, so he'll go to people's houses and do their setups there. And so a lot of the session guys like that because they can just stay in their cockpits and have people come and work on their stuff. And there's another guy named Toru, Toru Netono, and he's out of I think he's in Burbank. and he's great too. And he used to work with Shikasta, who is the guy that like did a lot of Robin Ford's guitars and stuff like that. And Toru's great too. And he's again also in the Valley. So any of those guys are great. I would just kind of price them out and see, whose turnaround was decent. I think that they would all do a great job. Eric Chaz's place is definitely like they have like 5 or 6 guys doing setups, and they're just doing setups all day long. So they're probably going to be the fastest. I don't know what their prices are like though. Oh, and I forgot my friend Luis. The guy that ordinarily does our guitars is Luis Munoz. And I hire him because he would come to our shop too, do house calls, and he is one of the guitar instructors of the Luthery program at Musicians Institute, and he's great. And actually, he just opened his own place. Like he used to just do it out of his house and do house calls, but he just opened his own shop that's I think it's in Boyle Heights. So kind of just outside of downtown LA, but I think he may still do house calls. So if he's doing a couple of guitars, and it might be a rate that makes it worth it for you, and they usually have some sort of minimum. So if you have other sort of like guitars, you have them restring them all and do some basics. That's what he used to do for us a lot, because we had so many guitars at the showroom. He would come like once a month, and he might set up like a couple of guitars, and then he would just change strings on everything else. So that we could fulfill like kind of like the time that it costs to cover his minimum. Do you prefer your trems floating or decked? It depends on what it is, but generally floating. Any recommendations on a good multimeter for guitar? Just a Sperry is fine. I have one linked in our YouTube videos always that's there that I think is affordable and is totally fine for this sort of stuff. Jerry, any old video posts or on an old video post, I asked about which video you covered the pedal boards and clearances for different style treadle pedals, and you said to email the team. Yeah, so there's one that's like, I think it's like watch this before you buy a pedal board, I think is the title of the video. But basically, all of them, none of the ones that expand, none of the pedal boards that have full size risers that go from the full left to right dimension will fit anything except a mini wah or volume pedal. If you get any of the ones with the cutouts, you would just base it on that. So one with a single cutout will fit pretty much any wah or volume pedal. One with a double cutout will fit any two either wah or volume pedals. And so if you just go to our site and you look at, for example, let's see. If you go to our site, let me just go there real quick, and I'll bring this up on the screen. All right. So if you go to our website, and you go to our products, and you go to our pedal boards, you can see if you click on a pedal board, there's the drop-down menu here, and it gives you the different riser sizes, so TL1 or TL2. If I bring TL2, I now have a cutout for a standard size wah device or volume pedal. If I go to a different pedal board, let's say one that's a little larger, I can equally do the same thing here, bring in a TC2, and then I have a cutout for a volume pedal. If I go to TC3, actually on that one, I think the reason why I didn't show the double cutout is because we needed to upload a second picture, and I think we got lost. But here's a TE3; it'll be the same thing. Same thing in terms of the photo. So it has a cutout now for a volume pedal and a wah, so you could fit two of them in there. And most of the common size wahs and volume pedals are typically about 12 inches. This is going to be, this pedal board is 15 inches deep. So that means that you're going to have, about another, depending on what it is, 3 inches plus, depending on whether it's a wah pedal or a volume pedal and the exact size of it. But that's how I'm making the determinations there, Jerry. So let me know if that's not clear, and if it's not, then we can revisit. Yeah, so I was unsure which email to ask. The treadle style pedals are a wah, volume, and full tone MIDI Deja vibe. So I don't have any that could accommodate all three. if they're full size. And if you wanted something that accommodated all three, you could always get one custom made. And fixed pedal boards will allow us to do that. It might cost a little bit more because they have like a one-time tooling cost, but it wouldn't be a lot more. It would be maybe like $25 to $50 more than normal. But you could get it made to whatever size platform you wanted. So if you had three, that's what I would say to do. Yeah, you're welcome, Skylar. And we're spoiling Guitar Land. Yes, we are. So we go for a couple more minutes, and then we'll sign off. Do you know what pickups Michael Thompson uses in his Hitmaker Strat? He said they're Fralins in an interview, but I'm not sure if it's real 54s or hot vintage. Yeah, so in his Hitmaker, it's actually the Blues Specials, I think is what they're called. Yeah, so they're not the hot vintage. It's like Blues Specials is what I think it is that they're called. It's like Blues something. Any common solutions to having wah, volume, and expression on a board without living in a sea of treatles? Well, there's some. I've seen that there's a device that you can switch a common volume and expression equipped pedal to go to toggle between the two and into what it is. But no, the answer is there's not a really good solution that allows you to do all three of them without having to have three separate devices. Usually this is me, but I usually keep a wah off the board because I think that they don't sound good with buffers, especially if it's an old one. Like I have a lot of old Clydes and stuff like that here. And old Crybabies from the 60s and 70s. And they don't really sound right with buffers. So they sound good first anyway. They don't have DC power jacks, and so they have to be used on batteries. So I usually throw the wah on the floor, and then I keep an expression and a volume on the board itself if I'm going to do it. So the wah is kind of always, that's just like an appendage, and when I need it, I put it down, and if I don't, then I don't use it. So that sort of restricts me to just having two on the board, a volume and an expression, or sometimes just a volume. Sometimes I don't even use an expression. Just kind of depends. Nothing to report on the Vertex fuzz. Ever thought about stepping into delay or reverb realm? I mean, I've talked about it, but I don't really know what I'd add to it. The only other thing that I've thought about is David Tarnowski from ADA. If you remember that company, they were one of the original pedal companies back in the 70s. He made a rack unit in the 80s called the STD. Not a great name, but it stood for stereo tap delay. And it was used by guys like Alan Holdsworth, and it kind of created almost like this chorus delay sound. It was all analog. And he's been trying to he said, I'll give you everything you need to make this thing a reality, and I'll even help with the design part to get it to work with stuff that's available now. And I thought if I could do that, that would be cool, because that was such a legacy piece back in the 80s that Alan Holdsworth and a lot of other studio guys use because they like that sound. And if we could do some sort of collab like that, then I'd consider it, because that's not really something that's out there that there's any competition for. But other than that, I mean, like, everybody's got an analog delay, everybody's got a digital delay. I don't really know what I'd bring to the table that would really be that much better. I've considered reverb stuff, like trying to recreate old lexicons, but I don't know that there's that much of a desire for it. I don't know how many people care about old PCM lexicon rack reverbs anymore. I love them, but I don't really know if the whole industry generally shares my love of those type of effects. And I'm also not a skilled DSP programmer, and that doesn't mean you have to be, because a lot of guys are just using chips that already have a lot of these programs written. But I'm definitely not an expert at doing designs for digital processing stuff. Would the whammy DT be small enough to accommodate the bridge? I don't know the dimensions on that particular one, Jerry. But if you email us, we could help you figure out what's compatible. And the best email, I think, would just be the info@vertexeffects one on there. So that's what I'd go for. But guys, it was great speaking to all of you. Thank you all for being a part of the live stream and in the private live stream here. And I hope that people are finding value in this still. That you're finding that it's worth, at least for those of you who are at the $5 a month, or it's worth your while that we're doing this every week. We're trying to involve more people by making the public version available weekly as well. And we'll continue to get better with your feedback. And look forward to seeing you next week. See ya.